Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, I will be reviewing a journal article entitled Malaysia New Economic Policy, Growth and Distribution, Revisiting the Debate. So, our focus today is to discuss about first, the introduction, second, the background of the journal article, third, policy impacts such as poverty eradication, restructuring in the employment, restructuring of corporate ownership and wealth, quality of life, economy, and also politics. Lastly, of course, conclusion. Malaysia New Economic Policy, Growth and Distribution, Revisiting the Debate. This journal article was written by two amazing scholars from University Malaya. First, R.T. Lanaitan and second is Ki Chiok Chong. The main purpose of why this journal article is being written is to discuss about the economic policy, which is new economic policy that mostly related to the country economic. Therefore, the economy is a fundamental factor as it acts as a backbone towards the country itself. For example, Malaysia. If Malaysia have a good economic performance, therefore it reflects that Malaysia is in a good pace of administration. This journal article was written on the year of 2016 and it comprising of 18 pages. New economic policy was formulated in 1970 by Tun Abdul Razak, which was the second Prime Minister of Malaysia on that time. This policy is being debated by all levels of society, either lower level or upper level. This policy also has become a central argument in this journal article as it is believed to generate many goods and bads toward the society. Other than that, this journal article also is about to discuss the economic policy that is believed has caused inequality distribution among well mix of society in Malaysia, which are Malay, Chinese and Indian. This is because during 1826, divide and rule system was introduced by British colonization that has created a huge gap between these races. For example, in terms of economy, Malay was work in farming, Chinese work in mining or commons, and also Indian work in plantation. However, in terms of geography, Malay lived in rural residence, Chinese lived in urban, and Indian lived in estate. Not only that, education factor also affected due to divide and rule system. For example, vernacular school was established which teach the mother language of Tamil and Mandarin. Furthermore, the whole view of this article is about to discuss the effectiveness and efficiency of new economic policy that has been implemented in Malaysia in order to assist the economy of this country. Like other policies, new economic policy also has several objectives towards the targeted subjects such as to eradicate poverty, to restructure the economy, and to eliminate ethnicity identification with economic function. Firstly, poverty eradication. During 1970, there was 49.3% of households in Malaysia was live in poverty. However, due to the implementation of new economic policy, the rate was decreasing into 15% only during 1990, which exceeded the target of outline perspective plan, which was 16.7%. The number of Bumiputra workers in the industrial sector such as mining, production, building, services and transport has grown from 173,000 in 1970 to 918,000 in 1990. Similarly, jobs in the service sector in Bumiputra has risen from 213,000 until 1.2 million. Bumiputra are represented in professional and technical and in service occupation, mostly in government employment, and also proportionately represented in clerical work. However, they are significantly underrepresented in management and administrative roles and in sales job, which can be considered as private sector job field. Therefore, Bumiputra had significant progress in joining the private sector according to the SIG Malaysia program, but they remain mainly on the lower rank. In the public sector, a substantial number of Bumiputra are in the high-level jobs, and this reinforces further the Malay-dominated sector, whereas the objective is to reduce the number of Malay in the sector. Somehow, the non-Malay or the non-Bumiputra do not seem to be attracted to work in public sector. This is the most controversial target of the new economic policy. Official figures indicate Bumiputra ownership share of 20.3% in 1990. Although it is an impressive achievement as compared to the starting point of 2.4% in 1970, it is still short of the 30% target. This increase was largely due to the involvement of the massive network of trustee agencies on behalf of Bumiputra, individuals such as Pernas, Mara and Uda, and also other elected institutions that had been created that actually accumulated the capital. Furthermore, the parallel growth in the share of Bumiputra and non-Bumiputra was made possible by a significant fall in the share of international investment from 63.3%, which one of the largest in the world in 1970, to much smaller, which is 25.1% in 1990. The actual level of ownership held by Bumiputra was around 8.2%. Nonetheless, the wider implication of the new economic policy were that by early 1990, there were more Bumiputra cooperation in the corporate sector. However, with the contraction in the mid-80s, Bumiputra's ownership development has stalled owing to its dwindling finances, cutback in trustee agency operation, as well as the more restrictive equity ownership regulation guidelines. Malaysia generally performed well in terms of life expectancy, education and health measures. This is supported by other social indicators such as first, the fall in the infant mortality rate from 39.4 per thousand live birth in 1970 into 13.5 in 1989. Second, the rise in school enrollment from 88.2 into 98.9%, and the third is the rise in expectancy from 61.6 into 69.0% for men and also 65.6 into 73.5% for women. Therefore, Malaysia placed fourth in the world in terms of progress of HDI between 1970 and 1990 according to the Human Development Index that has been established by the United Nations Development Programme. The standard of life increased so much that according to the HDI, Malaysia rated much better than it did on the per capita income by 1990. In addition to structural transformation, the framework of the system has also undergone a major transition from 31% of GOP, agriculture dropped to 19%. Therefore, industry increased from 25 into 42%. The percentage of workers who identified themselves as farmers fell from over 50 to 26%, and many of the farmers who remained in 1990 accounted for a significant share of their income from non-agriculture activities. The manufacturing sector growing from a limited proportion of total exports in 1970 to over 16% in 1990. In 1970, rubber and tin was the largest export product, dropped to around 4% in 1990 and 1% respectively. Just 22% of jobs in Peninsular Malaysia was in agriculture, forestry, hunting and fishing. So, few youth pursue agricultural occupation. It seems as if Malaysia is going to become a developed country by 2020. A major cause for concern when the NEP was first adopted was the expanded opportunities for rent seeking that were opened by the greatly enlarged role of government. While there existed rent seeking and corruption that accompanied the implementation of NEP, it is recognized that they did not prevent the achievement of the broad social goals discussed earlier. As the policy was formulated during the early of Malaysia independence, therefore, this policy is majorly focusing on the economic matters as Malaysia's economy was not fully stable on that time. On the other words, as NEP is mostly to support and accelerate the economic development of the Bumiputra, the federal government had taken steps to determine the goals for them to achieve, as it is important to ensure that the assistance can be channeled accordingly. However, the policy has become the most controversial issues whereby the government has been said as practicing economic discrimination towards non-Bumiputra. In line with that, Ko Butik in 1990 also has said that the NEP implementation during its first 10 years generated inter-ethnic tension and disagreements. The policy is said as favored Malays so much tends to be resent as ethnic discrimination by non-Malay communities. In 1975, the Industrial Coordination Act (ICA) was introduced in order to ensure competition in manufacturing industry, and there would be stricter in business licensing. Under this act, Malaysian firms had to put aside at least 30% of their corporate equity for Malay interests, and all non-Bumiputra's companies need to employ and train Malaysian citizens to reflect a multiracial composition of the country's population in all grades of appointment up to manager level. According to Mahathir, he says that I'm trying to redress the imbalance. It will be necessary to concentrate your effort on the Malays, to bring out more Malays entrepreneurs, and to bring out and to make Malay millionaires, if you like, so that the number of Malay who are rich equal to the number of Chinese who are rich. The number of Malay who are poor is equal to the number of Chinese who are poor, and the number of unemployed Malays are equal to the number of unemployed Chinese. Then you can say that parity has been achieved. This is because the economy was more dominated by Chinese because they lived in urban compared to Malays and Indians, which lived in rural areas during the era of British colonization. So, the NEP is trying to create an equal living standard among the well-mixed races by upgrading the lifestyles of Malay, but the Chinese was claimed that NEP was a favoritism towards Malay as it was the idea of UMNO, not only in terms of economic but also politics has become a part of the impact of new economic policy in Malaysia. Therefore, it encouraged Malaysian lawmakers to occupy company positions that are vulnerable to money politics on their own or on behalf of political parties. It was seen as a means of dispensing patronage and also led to conflict of interest that led to favoritism and corruption allegations. Thus, what is said as money politics? Money politics is getting illicit funds from business people and rich individuals with vested interests. It is done for securing their business favors, for instance, contracts, government projects, and other forms of business. Besides, it is also being defined as vote buying election includes using money, gift, and contracts to buy supporters or voters. For example, according to Section 19 of the Election Offences Act 1954, it is stipulated that the maximum sum of money a candidate may use as election expenses are only 50,000 ringgit Malaysia for parliamentary election, only 30,000 ringgit Malaysia for state election, 10,000 ringgit Malaysia only for local authority election, and 3,000 ringgit Malaysia only for local government election. But in reality, the election expenses will go beyond the amount. In fact, the Member of Parliament have access until 300,000 ringgit Malaysia of slush fund called Minor Rural Project Fund, or simply put as MRP. In addition, a new generation of businessmen found rapid wealth in rent-seeking alliances with such as Malaysian bureaucrats, top military personnel, and also royal family members invited to take part as shareholder in their company. So, what is meant by rent-seeking? Rent-seeking is an economic concept that occurs when an entity seeks to gain added wealth without any reciprocal contribution of productivity. Typically, it revolves around the government-funded social services and social service program. Thus, by exploiting the important sources of Malay capital such as Pernas, PNB, and Perambah Berhad, those Chinese businessmen will be able to procure licenses, permits, contracts, and other state-regulated business venture. These were all done because of limited access by Chinese businessmen to legal preference. In conclusion, Malaysia as a government is trying its utmost best to represent both of the nation and culture at the same time. It is because in a particular problem, we can easily see that there are several measures that the government has taken in order to cater with the specific problem. Therefore, in the economic terms, there was an affirmative action policy that are essential for any community that has been taken by the government. But we must learn from our experience and take corrective action based on the previous incident. Any concern occurring with the new economic policy need to be rectified. We need to do true work to recognize the segments of poor Malaysian who require support irrespective of ethnicity. We need to carefully plan it in order to ensure that there's nobody in it is left behind. The rise in Malay's equity and the emergence of new Malay middle class and entrepreneur has diminished ethnic tension considerably. Therefore, the policy highest contribution is in terms of the harmonization and civilization it brought with it, without practicing oppression and suppression of races. Basically, the treatment of discrimination and inequality with regard to minorities is undeniable worldwide and without exception with Malaysia. New economic policy basic idea is as a plan to upscale the economic and equality distribution of national wealth without neglecting any party. However, new economic policy has also rewarded some demerits such as money politics, rent-seeking behavior, patronage, dependency syndrome, or subsidy mentality, and channel much individual energy and activity into distributional coalition. Consequently, they are the one to blame and not the policy discards. So, based on today's review about journal article, we have learned about the introduction of the journal article, including why this journal article has been written and why they tend to choose new economic policy as a central topic in their journal article. Therefore, we also learn about the background of the journal article and how the new economic policy bring impacts toward Malaysia in terms of several important aspects. All this information is summed up and conclude in the conclusion in order to give a better reflection and also a clearer image and vision about new economic policy that has implemented and formulated in Malaysia. I hope it is an enjoyable and thrilling experience going through this reviewing process. Me, Muhammad Haziq Hezril bin Nur Hairul, thank you.